having access to reading and being comfortable going outside of my comfort zone of stories that I don't know and genres that I don't know has really helped me not just write and perform music that of my own, but perform other people's music too. I can get inside of the story or the perspective or the feeling, the emotional landscape of what is written already.
Well, hello, Aviva Jaye Mitchell. Thank you for
Hello.
joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've known Aviva Jaye Mitchell, I guess, since her birthday. I wonder why is that?
You're my mom.
I am your mom, and I just want to talk to you because you are a very intelligent young lady, and you're all about literacy, and I know this is a topic that you love. So I just really want to get into your heart and mind and soul and find out why is literacy important to you. And so I really want to ask you about your literacy journey, starting with your childhood, actually. What was it in your home environment that fostered your passion for literacy?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do remember being read to by you before starting kindergarten, and we had lots of children's books and mixed in with our toys and things. So we got to, pour through texture books and picture books and those little golden books. Those classic little golden books is what I remember the most.
They
And
were
then
rhyming. They were rhyming books. I love the
they were
rhyme.
rhyming books. And then we also had a copy of some Mother Goose rhymes that I remember in a old hardback or something. And also you read to us and all through elementary school. So even after I started kindergarten, but I do remember having a little bit of foundational reading information by the time I got to kindergarten. And so that helped me go into kindergarten for me personally with excitement and with confidence. I didn't have feel like I had to spend a lot of time feeling nervous or
Mhm.
confused. So I
Yeah,
could
because you were already
really,
familiar with book.
yeah.
Now I don't remember. Did I do funny voices? Character voice.
Um, yes, sometimes you did. Yes,
He went to market.
exactly, exactly. Funny voices and sing-songy things.
Oh, seriously, yes, of course.
Everything is
I
a
have to
song.
sing. I have to sing. Yeah. Speaking of singing, tell us about what you're doing now.
Yes, I am a singer. I'm a musician and a songwriter and composer, and I
And you
live
live in New York, right?
here. I live here in Brooklyn, New York, in Bed-Stuy, and after going to college in Chicago for music performance and composition, I'm still doing those things. And I worked with the Chicago Children's Choir for a little bit before I came to New York in 2009. And I actually work with the Brooklyn Youth Chorus, another children's chorus. But when I'm not doing that, it's just a mixture of multidisciplinary things, mostly in music, but across genres and stuff.
Yes, and you do little one-woman shows, don't you? And you sing with a lot of other groups, don't you?
That's right. I sing and play in a lot of other bands, and then I have my own music that I perform around the city, usually solo. Hmm.
Now, what about literacy helping with your music in any way? Did it help in any way with your composing or music? How did that factor in?
Absolutely. Well, there are a few things, but stories and storytelling and reading stories really, really has helped with my creativity.
Mm,
Being comfortable reading stories,
mhm,
reading whether they're fiction or nonfiction, having a comfort with that from a young age, and having comfort with looking up words that I don't know,
mhm,
or looking up the origin of a word just because I like the sound of it,
mm.
and seeing if it's relevant to something that I want to put in a song is something that I still do. So when even if I'm just writing poetry and I haven't put anything to music yet, like when I was a teenager or when I was in middle school, I think I wrote poetry and I wrote instrumental music, but the two didn't meet for a while until like later on in high school. So this just having access to reading and being comfortable going outside of my comfort zone of stories that I don't know and genres that I don't know has really helped me not just write and perform music that of my own, but perform other people's music too. I can get inside of the story or the perspective or the feeling, the emotional landscape of what is written already.
Hmm. Wow, that's powerful. I never thought about that connection with literacy. I love how you mentioned vocabulary because I do remember one little thing. Now, you know what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say it. You tell me.
All right. I tell people
Tell
all
on
the
me.
time.
Tell on me. You can tell on me.
I'm gonna tell because it is summer and this is when this would have been happening. You had a summer enrichment program
Oh,
for
yeah.
me and my brother. Maybe that's not what you were gonna say, but it leads back to what I know you were gonna bring up. And part of that summer enrichment program was just to keep our minds sharp during the summer months in the off season of school, right? And it involved having a book to read. You know, summer book programs are all over. You know, that's a library staple for
Sure.
children. But we were part of that in the 90s. It was the Book It program or whatever
Oh,
different
yeah. Yeah.
libraries were calling it. So we were part of that, but we always had to have a book to read regardless. But during the summer, at least once a month, we had to write a book report. At least once a week, we had to look in our nice big dictionary, just at random choose a page, choose a column, write the words down, and then just to choose two words to use in a sentence from what we learned. And we had to look in our encyclopedias, choose a topic, and write a two paragraph or I think one or two paragraph synopsis on something that we learned. This
Wow.
is in the summer. And part of
Well, I
the
didn't want your minds to turn to mush.
that's exactly what it is. You used to say that. Your minds can't turn to mush. Exactly. So, but you gave us these incentives and one of them that carried up through my adulthood
Oh,
is if you
no.
used a good vocabulary word and it's just in what you called everyday conversation or everyday conversation. If you heard us using a good or elevated or whatever vocabulary word in normal or everyday conversation, you would point it out, commend us, and either give us a quarter. And this started to become an ongoing, even with inflation, it became this like really heartwarming
What a
token
word.
because at the age of 19 or 20,
What? Wait a minute.
I remember being at college
Uh-uh.
at Columbia College, Chicago. We had been on the phone with each other. I didn't even remember that I said something. And then you mailed me a letter and you
What?
said, we were on the phone a couple weeks ago and you used the word ostentatious just like it was nothing. And you taped a quarter
No.
onto the card that you sent me in the mail, and I guffawed. I
Don't
cackled.
remember. Oh, my goodness. Well,
I'll
I'm
never
not going to
forget.
apologize for that
Not at all.
because all of that education I was instilling in you, that was just coming from my heart. I really wanted you to have access to things. I wanted you to be educated, but I also wanted you to be well-rounded. You weren't sitting at home all day during the summer with, being a bookworm. You still played your game. You did all the other things, but hopefully it's helped you.
Absolutely. People still comment. Someone just last week commented on my vocabulary, and I don't even remember what we were talking about or what word I used, but they were like, I love how refreshing your vocabulary is when we talk,
Hmm. Wow.
which is really kind. That's very
Well,
kind.
all of that, like you said, has come to serve you in your profession, in your career, in your writing. And I do remember you writing poetry, and you still keep a journal today, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. At this point, I keep a couple at a time.
Oh, Okay. And that's where you do your songwriting. You just journal about anything and everything.
Anything and everything. It's really mostly that. It is just like constant anything and everything. I've gone through waves of giving myself structure around my journaling. I've gone through giving myself prompts or looking up prompts on the internet when I feel like I'm in a dry spell of either writing creatively or that I haven't been writing emotionally, where it just seems like I'm just like, okay, today I got on the bus, and I don't want journals just full of that. It's
Mhm.
like what's inside that needs to come out. And so if I find that I'm stuck in that way, I try to unlock that, well, by reading, first of all, really, by reading something else.
Mhm.
And then looking at what other writers do. And of course, the best writers are avid readers too.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah, it really is. I know that you like journals because one of the best gifts that you gave me was a journal. Was that 5-year journal, questions and answers. I
Yes.
love that. And now I'm just hooked on journals. So I finished that one, and now I have another 5-year journal. I
I
think I'm
love
going to
it.
do those for the rest of my life because it's just wonderful to see the history of your life like that.
Mm-hmm.
On today, the June 25th or whatever it is, 2020, and then I get to see next year what the same
Yes.
thing. So yeah, that's a wonderful thing to do. So that's all about literacy too. I love how you incorporate that
Yeah.
reading and writing and listening to other authors and their voices. I imagine that writing is pretty cathartic for you too, when you're down and you're able to purge and get all that out, and probably makes you feel
Mm-hmm.
better. Is that?
Yes, it's writing and reading, I think, really keep my empathy unlocked.
Mm,
I'm really sensitive to others in the world around me, and I love people, and I love to know, what they're feeling and what they're going through. But that's a lot to take in, and in order for me to just stay in integrity, it helps me. Yes, it helps me to write so that I'm not clogging up my system or being true to myself. But also, it just helps me stay kind. I love being kind, so it just helps me stay kind so I don't get confused or distracted by things that would get in the way of that. I can just write through it in real time, and then I'm not putting that on anybody else
mhm. That's good.
when it's working for the most part.
That's good. And you mentioned like going to the library when you were younger and
Oh,
you to get all
yes.
the books. Is that still a habit? Is that still part of your life?
Yes, I was just having a memory of when we were younger and you would take us to the library, and I just remember rushing when I was really young, rushing to find the next. I was thinking of some of the series that I really loved when I
Yes.
was young.
What were some of those?
There were these books called The Gymnasts, which is sort of like the Sweet Valley High books that a lot of my peers were reading in the 90s, but they were about this group of girls and they were all gymnasts. And I was too scared to do gymnastics as a kid. I knew right away like that I was not courageous enough to do any kind of gymnastics. I
Well, you
love
did do
dancing.
dance. You could tap dance.
I was going to say dancing all day, and still to this day, I will dance. Ask me to run 3 miles, I'm like, no. Ask me to dance for 5 hours, yes. So, but I loved the gymnast books. I loved to live vicariously through them because I loved gymnastics. Every time the Olympics came on, I raced to the TV to watch it and everything. So I loved those books. Obviously, I read every single American Girl book
Hmm.
on every doll, all of the books, and some of them I owned, but a lot of them I just checked out from the library. I
Okay.
just checked them out from the library. So now I remember when I first moved to New York, the very first thing I got the day after I arrived was my library card, my New York
What?
Public. Yes, I took my right away. I've tried to find a piece of mail with my name on it, and I went and got my New York Public Library card, and then I realized that Brooklyn has its own public library system as well, so I got that as well. And now it has really helped me, especially during this time during sheltering in place. I still read, I can read books through the Libby app, through the library app on my phone or my device
Mhm.
until I can check out physical books again.
Okay, that's great. And do you like to read physical books, or do you do
Yes.
audiobooks, or what do you prefer?
I prefer physical books. I It's been helpful when I finally opened up to reading books on my mobile device. I had an iPad and a phone at the time, so that was really helpful because I'm on, in normal life, I'm on the subway and the bus a lot. So taking a physical book or taking, usually I'm reading two books at a time, maybe one fiction and one nonfiction. To carry those books around, plus an instrument, plus a lunch and all that stuff, can is prohibitive. So I really had to just get comfortable reading electronic books, and it's really helpful because the minute that I'm done with it, I can start another one. But if I have a physical book and I end it on my train ride, it's such a sad thing if I don't have something else. Where's it? It just feels like I feel naked if I
Yeah,
don't have a
you
book
might
that
have
I'm
another
reading.
book in the pipeline. Yeah.
Yes. So it's been really helpful. I'm still trying to come around to audiobooks. I think because so much of my life is audio, um,
Ah,
that that it's, I prefer to not have that, but I'm not against them, and I know that it's really convenient. I think if I were a driver, I'd listen to books
oh, absolutely. I won't
in
go any
by
go
audio.
on any road trip without an audio.
Yes, exactly. And I do remember that actually from our upbringing, listening to some books
Oh, yeah.
that way. Hmm.
Yes, yes, I do remember that. Do you see, of course, you're involved with a lot of young people being in the
Yes.
choir. And what do you think about their reading habits? I know you were an avid reader as a young person. Do you see that tradition being carried on in the kids that you're around?
Yes, I do. I think that it looks more expansive than
Okay.
it did maybe when we were younger, just because the internet is more expansive than when I
Absolutely.
was younger. I mean, I grew up with with the internet, but I didn't nowhere near like what it is now. And so I think I definitely see kids with physical books, in a 2 hour choir rehearsal. Maybe they get a 10-minute break. There's always a handful of kids who pull out a book in that 10 minutes. They just catch up while eating their snack, and everybody's talking around them and on their phones and stuff. And there's always that bookworm that's just like in the middle of the cacophony, just like catching up on whatever they're reading. I
You know what?
see
I think that would have been you.
something
That would
like
have been
that,
me.
maybe.
It would have been me too.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's funny to think about because I think I would have done that, and then I think I would have gotten maybe distracted by friends because I love people. So it's really interesting to watch which youth gravitate to things, but I also know that they read a lot more articles than I
Yeah.
ever read as a young person. I didn't read articles unless we were assigned current events as an assignment, and
Hmm.
or I mean I pored over magazines at Borders and Barnes and Noble. That was like my favorite pastime. So I do see people reading magazines and short form things as well, but tons of books. And I hear the students discussing books. Whatever, I hear that of course Harry Potter is never going to die. Like everyone can discuss Harry Potter without end. What house are you in? This and that. So I hear
You
those
know what? I think
conversations.
that Harry Potter series got something started with these kids reading. I really think that was a
100%. And I was late to reading those books. I did not read them as they were being released.
right.
And I just over the last 2 summers, caught up on all the books. I read the first two when I was, in college, but I caught up on the rest. And it is, of course, it's timeless and it's multi-generational, the
Mhm,
the
mhm.
connectivity around it, and so it's fun to hear those things. It's Yeah, but I see students reading a lot, and I rarely hear someone putting down reading. That I don't hear that kind of outdated sort of teasing or whatever. I think I remember hearing that sort of thing, like put the dictionary away, big word girl, or what, that kind of teasing that sort of happened. It feels very old fashioned to me. I
Yeah,
don't hear that, which is a relief. You know,
yeah.
people support one another and being literate and having
Well, they
interest in
should.
reading.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a badge of honor. Yeah,
Absolutely, yes, because as you and I both say, literacy is liberation.
that's
Literacy
right.
is liberation. Why do you feel that way, Aviva?
I feel that way because history, I mean, at least, in my ancestry, history has shown how prohibitive it is when you are not literate, and how oppressive it is, and how people use that tool of oppression to keep a person and a group and a collective from their full potential. So literacy is political for me as well, but also it is liberating on a number of levels. I think on every level, not just politically, anthropologically, emotionally, psychologically, one definitely, spiritually, all of the levels. It feels to me that it's liberating, and also it allows a person to be wealthy. I think it allows a person to be wealthy. I feel wealthy because I have literacy, and I feel wealthy because I have access to the amount of things that I've been able to read, the amount of perspectives I've been able to take in, the amount of journeys I've been able to travel without even leaving my room, or without even leaving
Beautiful.
my home. It's like I am a world traveler because of reading, and that really speaks to me, um, you know, because it lets me feel less restrictive. Hmm.
Yes, that is so beautiful. Aviva Jaye Mitchell,
Yes.
I want to thank you for joining me on Literacy Journeys with Linda. I appreciate your talent, your intelligence, your vocabulary. I think I'm going to have to send you about $5 just for this conversation.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for teaching me how to read. You did
Yes.
it. You did it.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience about literacy? I really appreciate your thoughts.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. I just want to say that literacy is expansive. It is not a single lane highway. So, um, as much as we are able to expand our literacy and the types of literacy that we have, that's real, for me, that's real freedom. And I hope that people feel encouraged to not let anything stand in the way
Mm.
of them furthering their literacy and defining the expansion of their literacy for themselves by continuing to read, by continuing to write, by continuing to listen, which I think is a really beautiful part of reading,
Mhm.
and reading the world. Not just reading these worlds, but like reading this world is also a form of literacy.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Aviva J.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Aviva J. Mitchell. Yes, she is my daughter. I love her. Thank you so much, Aviva J. Thanks, everyone. If you enjoy Literacy Journeys with Linda, please hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any interviews with all these wonderful people. And I'll see you next time. Bye.